Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. First order of business, please do the YouTube-y things. That's hit the like button if you like this video, and please remember to hit subscribe and you'll be notified of any new developments in the Lori Vallow and the Chad Daybell case. Today I'm going to do a timeline, crime line if you want to call it that. And what we're going to do is take all the information that we've discussed in many of the other videos and fold in all the newly released information. This is going to be a more expanded timeline than you've seen in my past videos. Now, if you want to go in and dive into, say, the custody cases that went on between Lori and Joe and things like that, that's going to be all in the previous videos. But I'm going to do my best, and I hope that you find this edifying. And to me, to put it all together in a linear fashion, it's almost like you can see the premeditation. You can see the overt acts that the state is going to have to prove in order to prove these crimes against Chad and Lori. And I just want to say that Chad and Lori are considered innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. So, without further ado, here comes my opinion. The violence begins, if you want to look back, August 5th, 2007. Lori's brother, Alex Cox, attacks her third husband, Joe Ryan, after Joe leaves a scheduled custody visit with his daughter, Tylee Ryan. Lori and Joe were engaged in a really vicious custody battle over Tylee, and it will continue in this narrative. Lori's brother, Alex, was kind of like an avenging angel for Lori. He stuck up for Lori. They were very close. And seemingly, Lori convinced Alex that Joe had abused her children. Okay, so come at it from the part of, let's say you believe your sister, all right, and you're mad about what you're hearing. Lori's brother Alex, convinced of this abuse, stun guns Joe Ryan twice before the assault is interrupted by another party. And Joe even bragged to people that he attempted to kill Joe. He essentially was interrupted in an attempted murder. Alex ends up spending 3 months in jail for this crime. He also pays a fine. And in 2008, there's some letters that while he's sitting there simmering in jail he sent out to people, and he's mentioning Joe in a menacing manner. He still hadn't let it go after he had done the crime and was doing the times. Around this time, Lori Vallow is married to Charles Vallo. Keep this in mind. Charles knew about this drama, and Alex is acting like the heavy in Lori's issues with people. We don't know if this has happened in the past, but this is where we're starting. So let's talk about 2009 to 2011. Lori Vallow and Joe Ryan, they're engaging in this ongoing custody battle. It's already been going on. It's continuing over Tylee. And even Charles and his ex, because Charles had been married before, they have this mutual custody battle within the blended family of allegations. And I'm not going to get into that. That's in another video, and it really isn't applicable to this, all right? But it just kind of goes to show how toxic, in my opinion, she was to all the surrounding families, like a narcissist is, right? So on August 13th, 2011, Lori is served with a document ordering a psych eval because she had told social workers that, quote, death would be an option before giving Tylee to her father, even for a visit. So she was getting psych evals way back in 2011. Now, guys, I believe, I'm going to give you a really quick sum. I believe in summation that Lori is not insane legally, all right? And I know they don't have the insanity defense in the state that she's currently being charged in. But I think that she has been unwell, but I think that she could appreciate her acts, appreciate the wrongfulness of her acts, and would then cover up things, that she could appreciate it. I don't think she's legally insane by the terms of insanity during crime committing. I'm not talking about to stand trial. I'm just talking about her mental state. But by that same token, this is why I'm telling you this, I believe that she is an unwell person. There's something that's not right with her. And I think that anyone can agree with me, that anyone who allegedly kills her children, kills exes, is not well. All right, just on its face, normal people don't do that. But I just want to say that when the defense comes up and wants to defend her once she's deemed competent, the state's gonna have to get over the fact that this woman's had multiple psych evals, that she passes, but she has been looked at. This mental illness stuff hasn't just popped up out of nowhere. Let me get back to the timeline. So Joe, Ryan, and Lori Vallow continue to have custody issues over Tylee even up to June of 2014. Issues like modifying the child custody, modifying child support. So an over 10-year custody battle. And in a released recording, later released, Lori is heard referring back to this time period and talking about Joe. You can tell she's talking about Joe by what she's saying. She doesn't say his name, but you know that's who she's referring to. And this is her quote. She says, referring to this time period, "I was going to murder him just to stop the pain." She justifies these murderous thoughts with scripture. And Lori then goes on to say that she told her bishop what she was thinking and feeling, and that she needed a temple recommend. The quote she gives in this later, audio testimony is, "I'm either going to turn my life to the temple or commit murder." That's what, in her own words, she had told the bishop regarding this time period. She could be lying. I don't know. But she alludes that the bishop then gave her a temple recommend. This is another thing that's going to have to be addressed later when you want to talk about her mental state. How long has she been unwell? Who is this bishop that is giving her a temple recommend under the threat of, "I'm going to murder someone lest I get the temple recommend"? I mean, this is crazy. So all these murderous thoughts and all this violence is going on before Chad Daybell is even on the scene. Just let that thing sink in. Meanwhile, in 2013, Charles Vallo and Lori Vallow, they're married, and they begin the adoption of JJ Vallo. And the legal adoption is actually finalized on July 25th, 2014, the same time period that she's battling with Joe. And JJ Vallo is a child of the Vallow family. For example, Kay and Larry Woodcock, they're his grandparents. And so the blood relation is through Charles, and they go ahead and adopt the family baby. And Lori's family, Lori Vallow's family, the Cox family, say they liked Charles, okay, as opposed to her previous 3 husbands. See, because Charles was a 4th husband, and Charles has money. That doesn't hurt either, does it? Meanwhile, let's talk about the Daybells. June of 2015, around the same time period, Chad Daybell and Tammy Daybell, they've been married since college. They have a family of 5. They've already filed bankruptcy after the book publishing venture isn't successful. They moved to Rexburg, Idaho, because Chad is always having these visions, and that's his stance. He is, had various jobs as a grave digger and the like, and Chad has these visions, and he lives his life according to these visions that he has had previous near-death experiences, which allow him to reach through the veil, and so he gets these visions, and the family tends to act on his visions, so he's told to move to Rexburg, and they up and move to Rexburg. The family hadn't been there for decades or anything. And Tammy works as a librarian. So in my opinion, Tammy, over time, it looks like she is the breadwinner, and Chad is writing the books, and then she's also helping him with the publishing of the books. And Chad is also getting other authors involved in the publishing of the books. So October 2015, Chad is working on a newsletter. He also is participating in a group called A Vow. So if you want to know that time period between what Lori and Charles are doing and how she's battling with Joe over child stuff, and Chad just sitting here living seemingly a Mormon lifestyle with his wife and family that's a little, on the edge, and with the doomsday stuff. Okay, so that's where we stand. That's where the violence has already begun, and the violence is on this side. It's on the Lori side against her ex. So in 2015 and 2016, Charles Vallo and Lori Vallo, they moved to Hawaii, and they're attempting a new business called Juice Island, and they create 3 LLCs. but it turns out that the business ends up being unsuccessful. So by February of 2017, the Vallows are back on the mainland and living in Chandler, Arizona. So that family now consists of Charles, Lori, Tylee, and adopted JJ. All right, and then you still have Chad and Tammy doing their thing. Okay, so that's where we're at. June 2017. Now this is a hotly debated date. Allegedly, Lori Vallow meets Chad Daybell, and you might say, "No, wait, I heard it wasn't until 2018." There's belief that it was earlier than that. Just because that's when Melanie said that that's when they met doesn't necessarily mean that's when they met. She was already a fan of his books. Many family members and different folks that knew her now have come forth to say so. She thought he was a rock star. She loved his books. So she and brother Alex would listen to Julie Rowe's podcasts. And note that Chad is the one who published a good amount of Julie Rowe's books. And by December of 2017, allegedly, they had already engaged in their first podcast together. And like I said, Lori's treating Chad like a Mormon rock star. She's completely starstruck by him. And Chad, when he does meet Lori, regardless of the date, if you want to argue which date it was, he starts this initial rapport by telling her they were married in a previous life. And there's nothing, in my opinion, that's going to get somebody either bonded to you really quick or going, "You are crazy," than saying something like that. And she accepted it, and it creates an instant rapport between the two of them. And in my opinion, one of the lures that Chad had for Lori, other than her already being extremely Mormon and requiring all her previous husbands to be Mormon and all that stuff, and also already being interested in the prepping concept, was that Chad allegedly offered her equal priesthood power. And in my mind, to a narcissist, that's like crack, okay? So that's another lure in my mind for the Chad angle. Because you got to think, if you want to be superficial and put Charles Vallo next to Chad Daybell, Charles Vallo wins by a mile. In my mind, just aesthetically and intellectually, Charles Vallo is more interesting and he has more money. So you got to wonder, why in the world did this woman go from this guy to this guy? That's, in my opinion, why. July 2017, that is when Melanie Gibb says she meets Chad at a preparedness camp in Morgan, Utah. Melanie Gibb claimed that she met Lori at an elementary school speaking event. So this is kind of how this group start meeting and start coalescing and start feeding off each other. I believe that she dates this as October 2018, but regardless, they're all starting to meet. They have similar beliefs. They're feeding off each other, in my opinion. This is when we get to the first suspicious death, guys, and I'm maintaining that this is suspicious. March 2018, Joseph Anthony Ryan, Lori's third husband, is found dead in his bed in his apartment in Maricopa County, Arizona. Joe was living in this apartment, and a neighbor's dog was walking by, and they smell a strange odor, and it's investigated. So on April 3rd of 2018, he is found, and it's believed he had been dead approximately, I don't know, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and his body was moderately decomposed, and death was ruled to be a heart attack. And Joe was then cremated. And since Tylee was his next of kin, Tylee received his Social Security survivor benefits and possibly a life insurance payout. If so, Lori would have been the custodian of the life insurance payout until Tylee came of age. Keep that in mind. There's money here if this child has something happen to her. All right? There's some incentive. As Tylee was also his next of kin, Lori was notified of Joe's death, because police are not going to notify the underage minor about her father's death. They have to notify the mother. So Lori gets notified that Joe's dead. And at some point, Lori gains access to Joe's apartment. How do we know this? Because she obtains some photo albums that were just Joe's, of his family and old relatives, and they reek of decomp. So we know that she got into that apartment. We're not sure when. All right, so May of 2018. Joe's sister, Annie Cushing, bless her heart, I just think she's great. She finds out about Joe's death from one of her other brothers. And what happens is Lori Vallow, though she is not on the outs with Annie, Lori Vallow fails to tell Joe's family about his death. This is going to be a pattern, guys. So just put a little hash mark here. She fails to tell Joe's family about his death. And when Annie meets with Lori and Tylee, because she wants to, see her niece about, and kind of grieve together, Lori tells Annie, quote, that the world's a better place without Joe Ryan. Now, mind you, this is a lady who's later going to give a testimony how she wanted him dead and she was going to murder him if she didn't get access to the temple. Keep that in mind. Lori hauls out Joe's old photo album, reeking of decomp, and in a macabre scene that Annie talks about, asking Annie to make notes of who's who in the photo album because Lori didn't know who they were. And she's just appalled at this, appalled at the smell of it, appalled at the weirdness of it. And Annie talks of Lori speaking in the past about the world ending, world scenarios, this apocalyptic mindset. So this isn't new, and that Lori said, sometimes I think it would be better just to put my kids in the car and go over the side of a cliff. Let's argue. In May of 2018, Lori isn't well. Okay? She just isn't well. Again, does that mean that she's insane? That she's incompetent to stand trial now? No. But arguably, she's not a well woman. All right? July 13th, 2018. Chad Daybell speaks at an event in Mesa, Arizona, and there's a book signing that's arranged by Melanie Gibb. So they're already, doing things together, calling on each other for these events, meeting at the events. October 2018, Charles Vallo finds multiple emails between Lori and Chad, and he becomes suspicious of their relationship. So by October 2018, something is awry and Charles is becoming suspicious. October 26, 2018, according to the state, Chad and Lori begin planning their crimes. And one could argue there's already been a crime committed. Maybe not. Maybe Joe died of natural causes. But according to the state, Chad and Lori began planning their crimes. Chad was at a prepper event in St. George, Utah. And the grand jury indictment that just came down claims that Chad and Lori did endorse and espouse religious beliefs for the purpose of encouraging or justifying homicide. Not that they are off their nut and believe it and did this because they're crazy. They did it for the purpose of killing. Why? Sex, money. It's an overt act. The overt act begins October 26th, and some people claim this is the event also where Chad and Lori first meet. I don't think so. I think that it's before, okay? It is before. October 30th, 2018. I believe this is when the email hits. That's Chad's rating the people in Lori's life, all these surrounding people, as light and dark. And I call it the good and evil scale. Who does that? Who looks at the spouse or their girlfriend or their potential mates, family and children and relatives and previous husbands and rate them on a good and evil scale? What's the motive there? And I believe in the email, he titles it Family History Documents, and the attachments got the stuff, people he seemingly likes or they like are light, and the people that seemingly are in their way are dark. Okay? So it's almost dehumanizing people, making them almost like spirits are in them. And when you dehumanize people, it makes them easier to be done away with, in my opinion. So by October 30th, the state believes they were already planning their stuff, okay? November 16th, November 17th, 2018, there's a prepper event in Mesa, Arizona. And Chad gives a talk at this prepper event. And he also may have stayed at Lori's house while Charles was out of town. And I believe it was also called a spiritual conference, like at her home. I'm not sure if this was the first time that they were together, you know what I mean? I'm not sure. But allegedly, this is also the time period that they were sealed together at the temple. And I do believe that this went on in their minds, meaning that I don't think that physically anyone else, some people say it could have been Jason, I don't know, but I don't know if anyone else was involved in this mythical sealing in the temple. I think they went into the temple and had this in their minds and did it in their minds, because I don't think they would be that bold. Maybe I'm wrong, because they both are still married at the time. They're both still married. Yeah, you don't do that, okay? But we've already talked about how the state's already laid the overt acts. The emails have already gone through talking about as allegedly justifying, using religion to justify homicide. So there's an audio recording that's made it into the public domain, and we can hear Lori testifying and speaking to a group of people. We do believe Melanie was there because we can hear her voice. Lori is talking about how she's seen the angel Moroni. She talks about angelic visitations. And I've said in a previous video, some of the stuff she talks about in some of this testimony sounds very schizophrenic to me, just FYI. So this is around the same time period that this is going on. That she was allegedly seeing the angel Moroni and allegedly hearing things that she would say in the video nobody else heard. Like, did you hear that? Oh no, I guess not. So, I'm just setting the scene for you. December 4th, 2018. Lori Vallow, Melanie Gibb, and Jason Mao have a podcast called Time to Warrior Up. The next day, Lori Vallow, Chad Daybell, Melanie Gibb, and Jason Mao have a second Time to Warrior Up podcast. These are typically, and I'm going to generalize, end of the world discussions, apocalyptic talks, and the like, to those kind of folks that were into that, into the prepping, into talking about the second coming. So talking about the January 2019 podcasts, by this date, Chad and Lori have been doing podcasts for months, and one would wonder, what was Charles thinking about this and these podcasts? Was he just thinking she was doing it with Melanie? Was he not listening to the podcast? What was Tammy Daybell thinking about all the time that Chad is spending with Lori Vallow and Melanie Gibb? Were they using Melanie Gibb and the others like Jason as kind of like placeholders so they could spend their time together and not be looked at suspect? I'm not sure. I really don't know. But I mean, there are all these players that are involved in all this stuff. And you will find out, in my opinion, that there are some real strong devotees. Like, they're in it, you know, they're moving, they're marrying, they're doing things, they're involved in some way, okay? I'm not saying they're involved in the murders, I'm saying they're involved in the group. And then there's some others that are kind of dancing around the edges with the similar beliefs. Where they fit together, we're going to let the state hash that out, all right? And we'll let people who want to save their fannies in what they know, you know, turn state's evidence. We'll let that come out. But by January 22nd, 2019, Chad is emailing Lori things like demon with a name, Nick Schneider. And this is going to become important because Lori then begins telling everyone that Charles is cheating on her, all right? Demon with a name, Nick Snyder. Chad told her that. Chad put that in her head. It's in an email. And so Lori starts doing what's the finest form of projection. Whatever she's doing, cheating with Chad, she's saying Charles is doing. Charles is cheating on me. Charles wants my life insurance money. That's because that's what she is doing. That's what narcissists do. They love to project. Whatever they're doing, if they're stealing, you're stealing. If they're lying, you're lying. It's typical. I mean, it's standard stamp narcissist behavior. They love to project. She's telling everybody that'll listen that Charles is cheating on her. And late January 2019, Lori takes JJ and she moves from Chandler, Arizona. And she goes on a freaking money grab, all right? And she screws with poor Charles, who is, I think he's in Texas, but he's out of town on a business trip. She cancels his return plane flight. Nothing screws you up more than being at the airport and all of a sudden your plane flight, your ticket doesn't work. She moves the truck that he left at the airport. She takes all his possessions and takes him out of the house, even down to his underwear, guys. That's how petty, petty, petty she is, all right? And then some of the possessions she puts behind this massive food storage because, you know, they're preppers. So they've got all this food storage, and she hides it behind the food storage because she knows he's never going to look behind there, I guess. She even goes, the petty level is off the charts because let's say you get to the airport, and in our airport, if your car's not there or something, you've got Enterprise right there at the airport, at our airport, which they probably did there too. So she went ahead and used his points. She took his 2,000 points. So let's say you could then rent a car right there at the airport. She screwed with them there too. Okay, I'm telling you, the level of petty is off the charts. She goes into his business account. She's a signatory, okay? She's a second signatory on the account. Probably never been in the account before, right? She goes and drains the account, like on I think 2 occasions, to the total of $35,000. And she transfers the money to a personal account, and then she transfers it out of that account. So that money's gone, and he can't pay some of his employees. That is bone petty. So this is all the shenanigans she goes and does. And she was not alone. Little Lori can't move trucks by herself. Little Lori can't move all these belongings by herself. Allegedly, she had Melanie Gibb helping her. Just saying. Just saying. That's my opinion. That's what's out there. That's what's out there. Melanie can tell her side of the story if she had no involvement in that. She seems to know when she talks about it a lot about it happening, but she doesn't say, yeah, and I was there doing it. I don't know. People have said she was there. I don't know. Lori tells Charles, she's out in the open with her crazy. She tells him she'll murder him if he stands in her way, and that she is a translated being who cannot taste death. Okay, so she's out in the open with her crazy here, guys. Out in the open with it. She begins calling Charles this Nick Schneider because she believes that he is possessed with this demon named Nick Schneider, and there's an email right before this from Chad, January 22nd. He put that idea in her crazy head. So she begins calling him Nick Schneider, says that he's possessed. What that does is dehumanizes Charles, makes him easier to kill. You're not going to feel bad about it because it's not Charles anymore. Charles isn't in there anymore. January 30th, 2019, when Charles arrives back in Arizona, Lori's changed the lock. She's removed his belongings. The next day, and all this is on the body cam. All his reach outs to the different police departments. It will break your heart to watch the body cams. And I've gone through it ad nauseum in other videos. Like, oh, you know, they did this and hey, didn't take care of this. And, you know, he's begging this and he's saying that. Go watch those, okay? So anyway, the next day, January 31st, 2019, Gilbert Police Department's notified regarding there's a hold that Charles obtained on Lori, essentially requiring her to go to Community Bridges and get her mental state evaluated because she has been saying all this crazy stuff. And she needed to be under a 72-hour hold for observation. All this is on the body cam where Charles is saying, yeah, I've got this, you know, trying to get Lori served, right? But you've got 2 different police departments because she's cagey. So Charles tries really valiantly to convince the police that Lori's unwell, but they don't take him seriously. In my opinion, they do not take this man seriously. And he's telling them, she's saying, I can murder you with my powers. And they're just like, marital spat. You know, that's my opinion. They just didn't take it seriously. And then the minute she went in there and showed herself, they really didn't take him seriously then, right? Once they got a good look at her, man, he's just been cheating on her. He's gaslighting her, right? Between January and July of 2019, Charles is reaching out to the Cox family, allegedly. Many of whom turn against Charles. They're in favor of Lori. They're believing her tales of him being this cheater, right? They're believing this, that he's trying to hurt her, okay? Well, at least some of them. There's a few holdouts that don't believe Lori and the Cox family, but Charles is trying to reach out to them. And Adam Cox and his son Zach Cox, they do talk to Charles on the side. And Lori tells Zach Cox that Charles is figuratively dead and that he is a zombie inside of him. So she's telling people this stuff, guys. And according to Zach, Melanie Gibb is the one that helped move Charles's stuff and was involved in the truck with the airport. So according to Zach, that's his words, Melanie Gibb was involved with moving Charles's stuff and of the eradication of Charles's stuff from the area and the truck move. That's what he says. Charles, he files for divorce against Lori due to her mental health, and he like I said, he petitioned the court for a 72-hour hold on mental evaluation. January 31st, 2019, in a preemptive move, because Lori's cagey like that, right? Lori, Tylee, and good old Melanie Gibb, they go to the Gilbert Police Department. And Lori complains that Charles took her purse when she was dropping off JJ at school, which he did. He did. He saw the purse. He took the purse. He was trying to get the police on the scene to serve Lori. And Melanie Gibb, good old Melanie, tells the police that they saw Jason Mal running down the road when they were trying to decide what to do, as they were driving by, and they asked his advice, and then they decided to go to the police station. Do you believe that as all this drama is going on and Lori gets her purse stolen and they're deciding should we go to the police or not, that they saw Jason Mao running by? I mean, I said this in the previous video that I talked about that. I mean, it's ridiculous. That's my opinion. Melanie Gibbs seems to vouch for Lori Vallow's story against Charles at the police station, in my opinion. And the police tell Lori about the community bridges issue and that she's free to leave. She's not being held there. She's free to leave from the police department. And until the paperwork arrives, this order, she's free to leave. And they even kind of give her tips on how to avoid it, So Lori, again, in a preemptive strike, allegedly voluntarily goes to the community bridges. Driven by Melanie Gibb, Lori checks in, she's discharged, Tylee picks her up, and people still refuse to believe that she went to community bridges. Guys, you can hear on one of the cams that's released by the police department, they call the community bridges, and you can hear the police, if I remember correctly, asking, and then you can hear the response, and it's like they called, it was February 1st at 6:15 a.m., Gilbert Police, they follow up with community bridges, and they're told that Lori had appeared and had been discharged. So she went. Yes, guys, she fooled another group of people. Are you surprised? Do you think that she sat there and said, I'm going to harm people and I'm going to harm myself? Because that's kind of essentially what she needed to be held. She needs to be a danger to herself or a danger to others. She fooled them. February of 2019, Chad Daybell's writing the foreword to Melanie Gibbs' book, Feel the Fire. So they're continuing on with their endeavors for the spiritual realm. And February 2019, Lori starts running because, in my opinion, she's running from this service of process from Charles. And there's argument over the time, but let's say between 1 to 2 months, she's running. So she goes and she visits Kauai, seemingly on a total whim, because she ends up calling her friend April Raymond, probably from the Hawaiian. They have a little airport, and I bet she just called her up right there when she lands with the leis and the beautiful flowers and the scented air, and probably was like, hey, can I stay with you? Yeah, seriously. Called her out of nowhere. So Lori tells her friend that Charles has been having an affair. Okay, the sad song about, projection. Charles is having an affair. She tells her friend about Chad's books. Get her interested, right? And about her friend Zulema, who has power to control the elements. See, Lori can't stay normal for very long. She's going to start riffing on this stuff. So Lori tries to recruit April into the Church of the Firstborn, the 144,000. She also tells her friend that Charles was, quote-unquote, dead and has a, quote-unquote, demon living inside him. And so what does April do? She distances herself from Lori. So for a good chunk, Lori's in Kauai. And I believe she brought Tylee with her. And I believe she left JJ with Charles so that he could see what it felt like raising JJ. So I'm going to tie this together. February 4th, 2019, Charles goes to his attorney. He gets an order of protection against Lori and told his attorney if anything happens to him, Lori and Alex did it. So now he's starting to really feel threatened. I mean, yeah. And on February 8th, Charles started the process of filing the divorce against Lori. It was officially filed on February 14th, all right? More than likely, they found the order of protection to be more important than just the regular divorce filing. So they got on that faster. I'm just looking at the dates of filing. And he requests sole custody of JJ, the return of the money, the absconded funds, the $35K that Lori took from the business account. And he also noted in the documents that she threatened his life. Lori also, during this time before the Kauai thing, was staying with her brother Alex Cox in Santan Valley, Arizona. So she was trying, in my opinion, to avoid being served by Charles. So during this period, multiple attempts were made to serve her with the divorce papers and with the protection order. They were all unsuccessful. So she really never saw what was being alleged in that protection order. One would wonder if she saw that, if she would then have been so bold to do something against Charles and JJ, because there were some allegations in the protective order. The process server was even trying to serve at Alex's residence in the Santan Valley, and seeing the two cars there, one was Alex's and one was hers, and they were thinking that they were inside just not answering the door, but actually she could have been in Kauai at the time, just FYI. So February 8th, Charles is on it. The attorney says, change your beneficiary designation. So he changes the beneficiary on his $1 million life insurance policy to his sister, Kay Woodcock, to make sure that JJ would eventually get the money and be taken care of. All right, so he took Lori off of it, who was his wife, puts his sister on there. All right, so that's February 8th. So Lori essentially doesn't talk to Charles for 30 days. And some people say it's 58 days. So it's like gone for 58 days. And she allegedly told someone she was, quote, letting him take care of JJ so Charles could see what she's been doing for the last 7 years. She's always the person that's put upon. She's always the poor little pitiful victim. Like, oh, what I've been doing for the last 7 years, let him feel it. Let him take care of JJ. And people also wondered why, like, she didn't fill his meds and she didn't give him the iPad and all the stuff that she used to assuage JJ and keep JJ calm. Like, she didn't give that to Charles. Well, the reason why was because she wanted Charles to have JJ at his worst. That's my opinion. On February 11th, 2019, Charles goes to the Life Academy, that's JJ's school, and and tells them, now keep this in mind, 1, Lori's gone crazy. 2, that she's hearing religious voices. 3, that Lori's disappeared. 4, that he has an order of protection against her, true, but hadn't been served. 5, and he's taking JJ out of state for his safety. So 10 days later, even though Charles has done this on February 11th, 10 days later, Charles is re-enrolling JJ. I don't know if it was because he found that Life Academy was a stable place for the autistic child, but he does re-enroll him. But that had been laid, okay? So that information had been given to them. And since Lori was missing, according to Charles, Life Academy reports Lori to CPS. I still haven't heard, not one person on YouTube, I haven't seen it in the legal filings. Where is CPS in this? Because usually they crawl up people's backsides. Do they just not do anything? I want to know, because this is the first CPS bring in the later stage. They were involved, I think, in the Joe dramas, okay? The stuff with the Tylee and all that stuff with the blended family. But this is the first time that it was called out by the Life Academy. And I know that Lori keeps checking some app even after the children are dead, and I want to see if that has something to do with her checking up on the CPS element of it. Just FYI, okay? Sadly, the divorce is later dropped in March. So March 1st of 2019, poor Charles dismisses the divorce against Lori that he had never served her with anyway, and they remain separated. And Lori allegedly tells Melanie Gibb that the Lord told her she needed to get Charles's finances in order. Yeah. I'll just let it simmer. Just let it sit there. Finances in order. April 9th, 2019. Allegedly, Julie Rowe was excommunicated from the LDS for claiming multiple mortal probations. Okay, so now, in my opinion, this is the time where the LDS Church is starting to get wind of this splintering group and starting to excommunicate them. And so someone else then said that Chad was also excommunicated. Now this is gonna, if it's true, that would be a real big problem because he's selling his books to a Mormon audience, all right? But allegedly he wasn't excommunicated because he was still going to the temple, even I think after the kids were missing and stuff. So make of that what you will. Things start kicking off. June 2019. Lori's niece, Melanie Boudreau, she's going to be Melanie Pulowski later. So let's call her Melanie B, all right? Because there's two Melanies. We had to keep them totally separated. Melanie B tells her husband, Brandon Boudreau, that she wants a divorce. She wants a divorce. I mean, he said it came out of the blue. You know, they have this happy family, and until she starts hanging out with Aunt Lori and getting involved with these people that are talking this doomsday stuff, they had a perfectly happy life. This is his generalized, my paraphrase of his testimony. And so June 22nd, 2019, Lori Vallow, Melanie Gibb, and Jason Mao, and someone named Thor, which I know nothing about, do another Time to Worry Era podcast. So now we're back to it. She is back with, she's not, I want to say back with Charles. She's off and on back with Charles, but it's more like they just aren't getting divorced. And she's back doing these dang podcasts. June 2019, Charles and Lori, like I just said, they're separated, but their divorce is on hold. He rents a house for her in Chandler, Arizona. And this rental home will later be the location of Charles's murder. This is around the time that Charles gets wind that his PIN number has been changed for his life insurance. He discovers that someone has changed the PIN, and he calls the company to ensure that Kay Woodcock is the beneficiary on his policy. Maybe that person who changed the PIN thought that they had done it, that they had successfully changed it back to Lori Vallow. Maybe they thought, okay, now everything's set. $1 million is coming. June 28th, 2019. Charles discovers a fake email. This is very important to the whole drama, in my opinion. The email purports to be from Charles to Chad, asking Chad to come to his house to stay and help him get a book underway. Chad being the author, all right? Charles was perplexed when he finds this fake email because, one, he's not writing a book, has no interest in book writing, and two, he's not asking Chad Daybell, who he's already suspicious of, to come and stay at his own house, all right? The one that's being rented in Chandler. In fact, he's suspicious of Chad Daybell. This is the last thing he's going to do. In retrospect, I don't know if they were planning to make it, to do essentially a Charles attack that Alex had done, or if it was just Lori wanting to get a piece and making that so Chad could show that to Tammy and be like, hey, you know, it's her husband coming, asking me to come and write a book, but he really was just going to throw a leg over. I don't know, okay? But this causes a problem. Him finding this faked email causes trouble because after finding it, Charles talks to Adam Cox. That's the good brother. That's the good Cox brother. And he notes to him that Lori and Chad were up to something. And he allegedly wrote in a text or an email, I'm going to send this faked email to Chad Daybell's wife. Her name is Tammy. And I found her email address on their website. I've got her cell number too. So Charles was fixing to blow the lid on this whole affair. He was going to contact Tammy, and we don't know if Charles ever contacted Tammy. We don't know, all right? But this essentially signed his death warrant. And allegedly Lori had been spending like 8 hours a day at the temple. And Charles asked Adam Cox, the good brother, to record Lori's crazy beliefs and to give the recording to her bishop so that she would lose her temple access. And he thought, allegedly, that having Lori take a break from the temple would somehow get her better and make her come to her senses, allegedly. But I don't think Adam Cox ever did this. So this is part of her thinking that Adam Cox and Charles are conspiring against her. July 10th, 2019, Charles texts Lori, she's staying at the Chandler, Arizona home, that he's going to be there at 7:30 a.m. to pick up JJ and to take JJ to school on Wednesday. and he hoped to bring JJ back to the hotel he was staying at, allegedly, and for breakfast beforehand. So he's going to be there at 7:30 a.m. And allegedly she didn't give him any pushback in texting. However, the next morning, that was Charles's last day on the earth. And allegedly Alex was called, you know, the avenging angel Alex was called to come and protect Lori, because all of a sudden now she feels threatened. She feels some kind of way that Charles is going to hurt her or harm her. And she was telling people like Melanie Gibb that Charles and Adam were trying to get at her. And, you know, I think Summer had said that she was the one that called Alex and told him to come and be on the scene to protect Lori. At this point, I don't know what to believe. All we know is that Alex was there at that residence with Lori when Charles showed up. So that's death number 2, folks. Murder number 2. July 11th, 2019, the death of Charles Vallo. It was totally staged. He was set upon, in my opinion, and the whole story is just baloney. So if you want to go watch my video on that, go right ahead. I'm just going to give you the overview. The events did not happen the way they were portrayed. Charles shows up in the rental car that he's rented to pick up JJ. He was fatally shot by Alex Cox, the bad brother. Alex Cox later went on to claim self-defense and that Charles had struck him with a baseball bat, yet leaving just a tiny little scratch on the back of his head. Meanwhile, Charles had played baseball. Okay, he would have brained him. After Alex shoots Charles dead with a .45 caliber pistol, Lori takes off in Charles's rental car and takes JJ to school, later returning with Tylee at what is now a crime scene. Lori tells law enforcement that Alex Cox was there because she was worried that Charles was coming to cause trouble. And Alex was the one that calls 911, and he says he shot Charles in self-defense on the call. Also, he was instructed by 911 to try to start CPR, but he fakes doing the CPR, in my opinion, because he has no blood on his body. Meanwhile, Charles has been shot in the chest, right? You're going to have blood transfers. That was a lie. Lori and Alex have bizarre demeanor in the police body cam that you're free to watch. It's on the internet. It's on YouTube. And note that every single person that was a witness to Charles's murder is now dead except for Lori Vallow. Every single person. Okay? I think there's a reason that some of these folks died. There's a reason that Alex is dead. There's a reason that JJ is dead. There's a reason that Tylee is dead. They all were witness to this murder. I want to mention that an audio has now come to light just recently, wherein Melanie Gibb is heard saying that the murder of Charles Vallo was planned self-defense. Her words. Allegedly. Guys, planned self-defense is premeditated murder. You don't plan a self-defense. Why didn't law enforcement have possession of Charles Vallo's phone post-death? Anybody wonder? Because she even talks about when she's brought into the police station about how she was holding his phone and he was trying to go for the phone. So why didn't police take the phone? In my opinion, Lori takes Charles's phone because the other members later talk about, they recall her going through his phone to ascertain with whom he had spoken and texted. Again, this is probably to find out what he told Tammy. Did he call Tammy? Did he text Tammy? What did Tammy know? And the like, the rest of the family. Many of the Cox family find out about Charles's death. The Cox family. Lori's own family. Other than the one that killed Charles knew. He knew he killed Charles. The Cox family find out about Charles's death from news reports. Lori was as cagey about Charles's death as she was with Joe Ryan's death. Failing to tell Joe Ryan's family about his death. She was that cagey about Charles's death in her own rented place. July 11th, 2019, Lori calls her son, her oldest son, Colby, and tells him that Charles has died of a heart attack. And she later throws his big pool party, and we still don't know who all was at the pool party. I think Colby might have been at the pool party. And when Colby finds out the truth, he's very angry because she lied to him about how Charles had died. And note, Tylee knows the truth about how Charles died, and now she's a liability. Now, Whether that's the reason that she was murdered, I don't know. But that factors into this because she is 16 going on 17. She's got some money. And once she's of age, she can go on her own merry way away from all these folks. And she knows. She knows what happened to Charles was not kosher. Note that Melanie Gibb had been staying at Lori's house. Again, bookending. She'd been staying with Lori right before Charles's death, and she stayed with Lori right after Charles's death. And allegedly her sweater is even or outfit is hanging in the crime scene photos. You know what I mean? She had been there, but she allegedly was asked to leave for one night the morning before Charles was murdered. That's a paraphrase. So Melanie was around this too. She just wasn't there. You've got to wonder. I'm not saying, July 12, 2019, Lori texts Charles Vallo, his two sons, in a group text. So now his family needs to be notified of his death, right? Quote, "Your dad passed away yesterday, ... We are still waiting for the ME report." That makes this death sound like there's some kind of natural cause, like you're waiting for the medical examiner to come back. Not that her brother Alex shot your dad. There's no mystery here. There's no medical examiner mystery here. Lori knows good and well her brother shot their dad. She doesn't say that. She refuses to tell the sons the location of his body and if a funeral is planned. So July 15th, 2019, Lori calls Charles Vallo's life insurance company. She's ready to cash in. She's ready to cash in. All right? But she finds out, much to her chagrin, that she's not receiving any money. No money for you because she's not his listed beneficiary. She doesn't know who is. They don't tell. They just tell you it's not you. If Lori was not planning JJ's death before or Tylee's death before, in my opinion, she is now. She is now. Because the big payout went wah, wah, wah. Okay? July 22nd, 2019, Lori emails regarding Bailey. That is JJ's service dog. JJ's autistic. He has a service dog. He has many things to kind of keep him calm and keep his schedule regular and to help him sleep. And she is trying to get rid of his service dog, and she cites a change in life circumstances. This is for JJ. There has been no change in JJ's life circumstance that needed the dog to go. These are overt acts, okay? This is like moving towards getting rid of him. July 29th, 2019, Lori texts Kay Woodcock a photo of the change of beneficiary form that's got Kay's name on it, and then she texts 5 kids and no money, and his sister gets everything. So she is fuming because she's allegedly found the change of beneficiary form that shows it was Kay, and she's fumingly angry that Kay is the one that's getting the money. So in my opinion, Lori's raging that she didn't get that life insurance money, that $1 million. And I think that's also part the fact the kids had seen the murder of Charles, and now that she wasn't getting that sweet payout, now she's got to scramble around and think about where else she can get the money. July 30th, 2019, Chad and Lori buy the burner phones. So they start, and I think it's more than one date, but they start buying burner phones. All right, more burner phones. Because you're fixing to do something hanky and naughty when you're buying the burner phone. So text messages between Chad and Lori regarding the death of Tammy and JJ. We're talking about death percentages. And essentially that's talking about how much the person's worth. I think that's in a life insurance terminology, like death percentages, like what are they worth. That's been discovered by the state. And so that's another overt act towards premeditated murder, okay? And a conspiracy regarding that. That's July 30th, 2019, regarding JJ and regarding Tammy, Chad's living wife. August 9th, 2019, Lori lists the service dog for $2,500. I don't know if she knew at that time. She really couldn't. I think the trainer had a right of first refusal on the service dog, but she doesn't sell the dog. And then August 10th, 2019, JJ Vallow has his last FaceTime with his grandparents, Kay and Larry Woodcock. So we know he was alive on August 10th. August 16th, Lori changed the deposit on Tylee's Social Security benefits that were going into Tylee's account, and she changed them to her own personal bank account. So that was August 16th, 2019. Now, a change like that, if you didn't know, probably wouldn't hit for a month, okay? So if Tylee didn't know, she wasn't gonna friggin' notice it for a month. So again, that's another listed overt act of premeditation. The state has listed that she changed the money from Tylee, that is Tylee's money going into Tylee's account. She changed it to going into her own account because essentially Tylee isn't going to need it anymore because they're premeditating her death by this point. August 30th, 2019, the dog trainer comes to pick up Bailey. And Lori allegedly tells the dog trainer, quote, "If Tylee asks, just tell her you found a home because she's really upset about this." Tylee, bless her heart, was upset about Lori getting rid of JJ's dog. What did Tylee sense was coming? The poor child had to have known that something was terribly wrong, that Lori was wanting to get rid of JJ's companion. So she asked the dog trainer to tell Tylee, if she asked, that the dog had a good home, that it was necessary for the dog to go someplace else. August 31st, 2019, the property manager at this place that had been rented, the place of that Charles was murdered, he had requested for Lori to leave the rental property at the end of August, after that fatal shooting happens there at the hands of her brother, and the same day raucous pool party that he heard about, and he was like, "Nah, you out of here." Okay, so Lori is now using the excuse she has to leave, and so she's using the excuse now of saying, instead of saying the landlord's kicking me out, she's saying that they're leaving the place where Charles died. It's just too traumatic, allegedly, to be around this place where Charles has died, so let's get out of here. According to Melanie Gibb, Lori expected Tammy Daybell to pass away before Lori would end up moving to Rexburg, but that didn't happen. It didn't happen. So she's just going to go up and hitch up the horses. Let's go to Rexburg. Tammy hasn't passed away yet, but we're moving. So September 1st, 2019, because she's getting kicked out of the one place, the gang decamps to Rexburg, Idaho. And it's like a complex, they're in a townhome. And they thought that Rexburg was the place they all needed to be. And Alex Cox and Lori Vallow decamp there into two different townhomes. And the gang will all essentially live in the same area of Idaho. Because Melanie Pulowski, the Melanie Boudreau, who we mentioned, the other Melanie, she'll end up moving there as well. She hasn't moved there yet, okay? But there's no doubt in my mind that Lori's goal was to be near Chad Daybell. But his wife wasn't dead yet. And allegedly, Tammy Daybell may have become suspicious of Chad Daybell around this time. Was it because she was contacted by Charles Vallo? I don't know. Was there something else that happened to make her suspicious? I don't know. On September 3rd, 2019, JJ is enrolled at Kennedy Elementary. And on September 5th, Lori emails Life Academy. That's the place he had been previously enrolled in, that CPS had called her because she was gone. And she withdraws JJ from there. And again, Life had allegedly called the CPS on her. September 8th, 2019, Chad and Tammy Daybell increase her life insurance to the maximum amount. I don't know if it's for both policies, but I think it was up to $430,000. I don't know if I think there were two policies. There was a tiny policy, I don't know if it was through her work, but then the life insurance policy was signed, maxed out on the 8th. That's the same day as death number 3, guys. Yeah, this is Tylee's last day. Tylee, Lori Vallow, Alex Cox, and JJ. They all go to Yellowstone National Park. It's almost like she gave poor Tylee one last hurrah, one last enjoyment. They're seen in photos taken that day at Yellowstone. It will be the last picture of Tylee alive, and she was 16 years old. Murder number 3. On this day, that Chad is upping his life insurance, maxing it out on his wife. He's also Googling south-southwest SSW wind on a Quora search. Guys, this is a day before Tylee's body will be allegedly burned in his yard. So he's wanting to determine which way the winds are blowing. And this is an overt act in premeditation because Tylee wasn't dead yet. She wasn't being burned yet. And he is searching this because he allegedly wants to burn a body on his property, and he wants to assess that it's going to blow in the direction where there isn't a house. In my opinion, and in the state's opinion. September 9th, 2019, Alex's cell phone is pinging at the apartment 175, and between midnight and 6 a.m., then it's pinging at Chad Daybell's property. This is allegedly when they dismember and burn the body of Tylee. On September 9th, Chad, in a move to CYA, in my opinion, texts his wife Tammy, who isn't at the house, a story about killing a raccoon, burning limb debris, and burying something in the pet cemetery, the raccoon. Mind you, no raccoon was discovered on the Daybell property, and no one sees Tylee again alive. The text that he sends to Tammy is rife with Freudian type connotations in my mind. I mean, the words he uses, the choice he uses, I covered in another video. It's stunning in the fact that he's trying to cover his butt by explaining maybe like a gunshot and burning limbs and burying things, and he's just telling on himself, essentially, in his word choice. On September 16th, 2019, they're going back to their regular scheduled podcast. So Chad, Lori, and Melanie Gibb have a podcast. September 17th, JJ is last seen playing outside his apartment on a neighbor's Ring door cam. So he's still alive at this point. Tylee has been murdered, allegedly. September 22nd, 2019, Lori allegedly tells Melanie Gibb that JJ has become a zombie, and Lori maintains that Tylee is at BYU because she's not there, and Melanie has come for the weekend to visit and to do a podcast. And on September 22nd, the group visit a lot close to the Daybell property. Okay? What's that going to do? That's going to put phones a ping in there. Melanie Gibb said that Chad wanted to show David Warwick, her current boyfriend, some land and encourage him to buy on that land. I don't know if that was the adjoining Daybell lot, but allegedly David Warwick, Melanie Gibb, Alex, and I think Chad went to see the land, but Lori didn't. So September 22nd, if you're going to look at the phone pings and stuff, you've got that gang right near essentially Chad's house looking at a piece of property. I think they might have had a real estate agent there too. If so, then that would be someone who could vouch for that. Then that night they have a podcast. So Melanie Gibb is on the scene during the murder of JJ. So Melanie Gibb is around during this time period that JJ is murdered. From September 19th to September 23rd. So the 19th, she arrives, and I think David Warwick arrives the next day. And we know that the 22nd, she says they go to see a piece of real estate. And then that evening, they do a podcast. Melanie said that she saw Chad Daybell with Lori on and off that weekend, except for that Monday. That Monday that they leave. I guess that's the 23rd. And they participated in the podcast on the 22nd. And that Alex brought in JJ during the podcast, seemingly asleep, like holding him. And the podcast went from 8 to midnight. And at some point, Alex is seen carrying what looks to be a sleeping JJ. So that's the last person, that's not one of the suspects, that sees JJ seemingly alive with Alex. Alex took possession of JJ. So this is death number 4. September 23rd. Seemingly he was murdered overnight, over that evening between the 22nd into the 23rd, because according to the state, Alex Cox took possession of JJ. And note that Tylee normally took care of JJ a lot. She was kind of like a babysitter, you know, a sister. And without Tylee alive, Lori had to assume a lot of the role of caretaker. And I'm sure that became quite taxing. You don't have an ex-husband to take care of him because he's dead. You don't have your daughter to take care of JJ anymore in pinches because he's dead. Now I'm sure JJ has become more of a problem. And also he has some Social Security benefits to take. Money, right? So the house guests, David Warwick and Melanie Gibb, have been staying with Lori at her place, and they get up the next morning and they claim that JJ is not there, and that they ask, and that Lori says he's with Alex. And the state claims that Alex's phone pinged the next day at the Daybell property. Seemingly, over that evening, they had the podcast, Alex has sleeping JJ, something happens either in another apartment or whatever, and then Alex's phone is over at the Daybell property pinging away. And the next day they ask, where's JJ? Oh, you know, lies, lies, lies. But JJ's not there. According to Melanie, but according to the pings, Alex's phone was at the Daybell property, where JJ is later found. September 24th, Lori unenrolls JJ from Kennedy Elementary, says she plans to homeschool him. September 24th is also Tylee's birthday, guys. Let's note that. No one sees her. No one celebrates her birthday. No one, is calling her and texting her, and you know what I mean? Like, there's no family get together. No one's wondering where she's at. And Lori tells the babysitter who contacts, she used a babysitter to babysit JJ from time to time. And when the babysitter asks, she tells, oh, he's with his grandparents. Oh, he's with his grandparents. September 29th, allegedly Chad told Julie Rowe, and you can take this with a humongous grain of salt, my plan cannot move forward until Tammy is dead. Because now we've got everybody out of the way except for Tammy, right? At this point, Joe Ryan, the annoying ex, is dead, right? Natural causes. The annoying ex, Charles Vallo, is dead. Didn't get that much life insurance money. Then you have Tylee being murdered. So now Lori can take her Social Security money. And now you got JJ murdered. Lori can take his Social Security money. Whatever he would have gotten through disability because he was autistic. So she gets that money. She doesn't get that sweet $1 million life insurance off Charles, but she does get some money from the kids. And she will catch charges for that too. You will see that when the state does charge them with first-degree murder and conspiracy, they also catch the charges for the fraud. The fraud for the life insurance and the fraud for the Social Security. Chad still has his wife Tammy alive. And Lori at this point has sacrificed at least 3 people for the relationship with Chad. So just keep this in mind as we're building towards this crescendo of murderous behavior. October 1st, 2019, Lori rents a 10 by 10 storage unit in Rexburg, Idaho. October 2nd, there's an attempted murder of Brandon Boudreaux. Again, I think this was yet another one that was going to be another notch on their murderous belt. This is my opinion. Because he had another $1 million insurance policy. But then, in essence, that might implicate Melanie B. now Pulowski. For whatever reason, the avenging angel, Alex Cox, took it upon himself to try to murder Brandon Boudreaux, according to the state. So this is the husband of Lori's niece. This is another Melanie that's interested in the group, and she ends up moving to the Rexburg complex. And her ex, she was married to him at the time, he's shot at in the driveway of his Gilbert, Arizona home. And the bullet shatters the driver's side of his Tesla window. And he sees a gun with a silencer. And he noticed what looks like Tylee's Jeep Wrangler. And Tylee's dead by now, but he doesn't know that, okay? So he sees Tylee's Jeep Wrangler. Tylee's dead and Charles is dead. So you can kind of narrow down who was driving, but he actually sees Alex Cox, or someone he thinks is Alex Cox, reach out the back of the Jeep's window with the tire removed and shoot at him. Okay? Just so lucky that he missed. And the Jeep is also later captured on CCTV footage, so we know that was the correct Jeep. So what Brandon Boudreaux does is smart. He takes his kids and he goes into hiding, which likely saves all their lives. In my opinion, Brandon Boudreaux allegedly also had a $1 million life insurance policy on him. So that would have been a nice payout, huh? But Alex Cox failed to hit him with the gun, bookending this time period and event. The bookends are real important in conspiracies, because in a conspiracy, not every single person needs to put their finger on every single weapon. You have a common idea, a common agreement, and you have some knowledge. You don't have to have knowledge about every single part of the conspiracy either. Okay, we'll get into that later. But bookending this event, you're going to see other people doing things. Chad and Lori, Lori's rented this storage unit, and you're going to see Lori and Chad and Alex moving a rear seat, seemingly from the Jeep, and the tire into the storage unit. And then Melanie Pulowski, she even says that she asks Alex, like, did you try to shoot my husband? And he denied shooting her husband. So she believed him. But you're going to also see after some of these shootings, then they're moving the tire out, taking the tire off so that the deed can be done, the attempted murder, and then putting the tire back on. And you're seeing like Lori and Chad and him, touching her fanny and in the CCTV footage, and then you're seeing her and Alex move the tire out. I mean, bookending it. The attempted murder of Brandon that Lori knows, Chad knows. Come on. Also note, for the record, Melanie Gibb has said herself that she was sent over to have a look-see by Alex Cox and Melanie Pulowski after the shooting, because they had moved out. Okay, Brandon landed. He went into hiding, and Melanie Gibb went looking because she was asked to go and find out where he was, and she asked a neighbor about him, and they said, oh my God, someone tried to shoot at him, and so they've gone. And so that, she claims, that was the first time she knew about the shooting. You gotta wonder, this is my opinion, A, Melanie Gibb's in on it, or B, they're setting her up to be a patsy. Every single place. She's there for JJ. She's there for Tylee. She's around. Oh, she took JJ. Oh, she was there doing a podcast the night that Tylee goes missing. She's there, going to be pinging right after the Brandon Boudreaux shooting. Either one or the other, pick it. She's either involved or she's a patsy. And I think maybe if it was two, she figured it out, and that's why she turned state's evidence. This is crazy, isn't it? October 2nd, 2019, Lori Vallow orders wedding rings for herself using Charles Vallo's credit card before Tammy's death. Again, more overt acts. The prosecution, the state, does not have to show every single overt act to get a grand jury to indict. But we're starting to see some of the few overt acts that they're dropping, just as like a little tidbit for you to know, hey, Tammy wasn't dead and she's buying wedding rings to be with Chad that she later puts on her finger using the dead Charles Vallo's credit card. I mean, the insult to injury is over the top. She also buys like some clothes for Chad too, I believe, like some white bridal outfit, white outfits. But since Lori uses Charles's credit card to pay for these rings, and I believe that when Charles is the way that, okay, Kay Woodcock had gotten access to some of Charles' emails, and Charles always, I guess, used the same email password. And I think that she was seeing, like, when you order something, then, like, say Amazon will send you an email, like, you ordered this. So that showed, when she saw the email, it had Lori's address on it. So then Kay, who's been trying to get a hold of JJ, her grandchild, to talk to JJ, because they haven't had FaceTime in a while, sees that address and makes a note of where Lori is living. Okay? So this is where the heroic stuff comes in. The Woodcocks, they want to see their grandchild. They want to see JJ. And this is what brings this group's murderous actions to national attention. She sees the Amazon purchase. She sees where Lori is now living. And in November, she notes down the address where the purchases were delivered. And now Kay Woodcock has Lori's address. October 4th, 2019, Tammy Daybell is told by Chad Daybell to go and visit her parents in Springville, Utah. And it is not known why he wanted Tammy out of the house. Personally, I don't know if it was, again, like taking Tylee to Yellowstone, give them one last hurrah, or if it was something more nefarious, like speculation. Could it be that there was a plan to murder her while she was on the road, like have a car accident? We had always heard like, oh, Tammy, I have a vision, Tammy's going to die in a car accident. I don't know if it was like to get her murdered elsewhere, or if they just needed her out of the house because there are two bodies on Chad's property at this point, and maybe those bodies needed tending to. I don't know, but I just know that that's an important date. Then, around this time, there's text messages between Chad and Lori that the state has found talking about Tammy being quote-unquote in limbo and possessed by a spirit named Viola. Okay. October 8th. Oh, let me just say, again, this is their way to dehumanize someone. You're a zombie. You're possessed. Therefore, I can kill you without any kind of remorse. In fact, I'm doing you a favor because you're not you anymore. October 8th to October 12th, 2019. Around this time, Alex is doing searches because, you know, they're not the sharpest tools in the shed, these Coxes, in my opinion. He's doing searches on Grendel drop. He's using allegedly a Grendel firearm, and the drop would be like, I guess when you have ballistics, like how far from the target that you shoot to that it would drop, the distance from the target. So he's doing searches, and he's going to the gun range, and the Grendel rifle just so happens to look like a paintball gun. Go look it up. Again, this is premeditation. He's looking for the Grendel drop. All right, he's doing searches. He's going to the gun range. And then what happens? There's an attempted murder on Tammy Daybell. Yep. Search it, Grendel drop. Then you go and use the Grendel to try to kill Tammy Daybell. I mean, genius, right? October 9th, 2019, there's attempted murder on Tammy Daybell, age 49. She's accosted by a man with a gun, Alex Cox, a man wearing a ski mask, and he shot at her several times. She assumed it was a paintball gun, all right? She's naive, in my opinion, and she says to him, "What do you think you're doing?" And she thinks about throwing a frozen dinner at him, and she yells for Chad, and the assailant runs away. In my opinion, Chad likely minimized this incident to Tammy because it didn't come off. It didn't come off. She was not hit, and she was left perplexed. She goes on Facebook and recounts the issue. And I don't know if Chad convinced her it was probably just a kid with a paintball gun or what, but Alex's cell phone is later pinged at the Daybell residence. Yeah, that's what the state found. So, also he did some more searches of shooting through a Dodge Dakota in around this date. Shooting through a Dodge Dakota. Guys, this is rough. Now we're going to talk about the fifth murder. October 18th, 2019, death number 5, the murder of Tammy Daybell. So the day before Tammy's death, a friend, allegedly, one of her friends was asking, like, I think for a book recommendation and testified that Tammy just seemed off and seemingly upset about something. We can all speculate what that something was. And 10 days after she was shot at by a masked man, Alex Cox, Tammy goes to bed. And allegedly, after the fact, Chad claims that she was coughing. Meanwhile, she was like training for a marathon. Seemingly in perfect health at age, 49? So she's found dead the next morning at their home in Salem, Idaho. The same home where there's 2 dead children in the yard, by the way. Buried. The same night, Alex Cox's phone is pinging from a parking lot 2.5 miles away from the Daybell residence. I don't know if it's because he was involved. I don't know if it's because they were keeping him on hand in case something did not go off again. I mean, likely Alex Cox was kept nearby as he'd already tried to kill Tammy once before, 10 days earlier. No autopsy was performed and the death was deemed to be natural causes. Okay, so they took Chad's word for it, and Chad later claimed to Melanie Gibb that Tammy had been unwell and that Garth was in the house or at the house that day, and that everybody showed up after, and that two doctors had looked at her, and that Tammy died of natural causes. But later, Tammy Daybell's body's exhumed on December 12th, and it showed a different story. So after October 19th, 2019, after the death of his beloved wife who had given him a large family and led a nice Mormon lifestyle, Chad Daybell collects $430,000 of Tammy's life insurance money. And allegedly he had upped the policy to the maximum about, a month before her death? Why didn't the life insurance agents check Carter into this? Did they? And we just don't know? I don't know. Melanie Gibb later claims that she found out about Tammy's death from someone who saw it on a post on Facebook. And then they called her and said, hey, did you hear Tammy Daybell died? And then she had to call and find out. All of these folks are really reluctant to let other people know about these murders, aren't they? So on October 24th, 2019, a week later, give or take, Chad moves out of his Salem, Idaho home, the family home where Tammy's died and the kids are buried in the backyard. Allegedly, he tells the children that he really wants to sell the home, but they convince him not to. So they stay in the home. And now, where's that home right now? I believe one of them might be living in it, and it's essentially John Pryor's home now because it's paying for Chad's legal defense. But let's continue. October 28th, 2019, Melanie Boudreau, who will be Melanie Pulowski, signs a lease on Unit 174 right next to Lori and near Alex Cox in the complex. And there's been talk about, things going on in that apartment, but in theory, all the folks are essentially already dead except for Alex. So I don't know what would have went on in that apartment unless the date's wrong on this timeline. November 2019, Tylee's Jeep, the one that was used in the attempted murder of Brandon Boudreau, is located in Rexburg. So they were looking around for that Jeep because Brandon had said this is the car, and they pulled the CCTV and they found, yep, that's the car. So a Gilbert police detective was looking into this stuff, and he began surveilling Lori Vallow. Okay, but he doesn't see any of the children during the surveillance. He isn't looking for the children, but he doesn't see any. So keep that in mind. No one outside the group knows the children are missing at this time. No one. The only people that are suspicious are the Woodcocks because they haven't talked to JJ over FaceTime yet. And can I also say, thank God this did not happen during the pandemic, because if so, I think that they could have gotten away with this for a much longer time, because you would have had an excuse to not see each other, and you could have come up with some hokey excuses with your internet being down or something. And I just think that they could have gotten away with so much more if this had happened during the pandemic. November 5th, 2019, Chad and Lori marry officially, because remember they were married in the temple in their minds, but they officially marry in a beach ceremony in Kauai. This is Lori's 5th marriage, and only the bride and groom are there other than whoever does the ceremony. Tammy Daybell's family is allegedly shocked when they find out. I mean, wouldn't you be? Utterly, completely shocked. Chad tells people that Lori Vallow has no minor children and that she is an empty nester. In a way, that's kind of true. She's an empty nester because she has Colby, her oldest son, and she has no minor children because they've murdered her children. So they proceed to rent a room in Kauai. And also while they're in Hawaii, they kind of bounce around from place to place, from rental to rental. So I'm not going to follow that with a fine-tooth comb. Mid-November 2019, Chad and Lori, it's like their honeymoon. So they return to the mainland after their honeymoon, and they live at Lori's townhouse. So he's got the Salem place where the kids are buried in the yard and where Tammy had died, and he's got his kids living in it. And he goes and moves in with Lori at her townhouse. On November 25th, 2019, this is the date that the crimes start being revealed. the hinkiness is start being uncovered because JJ's grandparents, the heroes of the piece, Kay and Larry Woodcock, they request a welfare check on JJ because they have been unable to contact JJ, and Lori has not facilitated them seeing him, even like on a phone call, even via FaceTime. Well, she can't because he's murdered, right? But they knew her address because of Lori's Amazon purchases made on deceased Charles's credit card. So the Gilbert Police Department, they contact the Rexburg Police Department. You got to give them a little bit of leeway because different police departments are contacting different police departments. Like some people expect like all these murders to be just tied up in a bow together. Well, you got different jurisdictions, right? You got people dead here, people murdered here, people, you know, if you tie Joe in, you tie Alex in. I mean, you got different areas. So you got to give them just a little bit of leeway. So the Rexburg Police Department, they do the welfare check on JJ. And they see Alex, when they pull up, they see Alex Cox and they see Chad Daybell outside the residence. And they question him separately. But when they question Chad, he acts like he doesn't even know Lori at all. She's his wife at this point. And he acts like he doesn't know her cell phone number. And the police know this is a lie, okay? And then when they talk to Alex Cox, he tells the police that JJ's with his grandmother. Again, they know this is a lie because his grandmother is the one that called the welfare check-in. Kay Woodcock called the welfare check. So they know that these turkeys are lying. The Rexburg Police Department, they find Lori Vallow in her apartment and they talk to her and she tells them, and this is all on the body cams if you want to listen to the craziness. She tells them that JJ's with Melanie Gibb. And she also tells them that later she tells them when they try to follow up with her that JJ's at Frozen 2. He's in a movie. That's probably why they're not picking up the phone. After the police leave, both Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell call Melanie Gibb and ask her to lie and say that JJ is with her. And she testified that Chad called her first and said the police are looking for JJ. And she was like, what, he's not with Kay? And then an hour later, Lori called her and asked her to lie and asked her to fabricate evidence. Like, take a picture of this and da-da-da-da and make it look like he's with you. So on November 26th, Lori's already lied to the police about the whereabouts of JJ. Melanie Gibb lies to the police and says that she had JJ, she doesn't have him anymore. Officer Pilar had called Melanie Gibb, and she lied to him. And she doesn't clear it up with them until December 6th. But in retrospect, okay, she's done the right thing now by telling some truths. And in retrospect, the time between the 26th and December 6th would not have changed the life of JJ and Tylee. I mean, it sucks that she lied. It sucks that time was spent with resources unfruitfully, but in the long run, it doesn't change. What was done was done. On November 26th, after this welfare check, what do you think's going to happen? Lori and Alex, they're packing up a truck. Chad, they're all, let's get out of here. You know, let's get out. They're going to lam it. Lori and Chad are going to go back to Hawaii. All right, Alex, go. Everybody's going to go. They feel threatened, in my opinion. November 27th, 2019, Rexburg Police Department, they help the Arizona PD execute a search warrant regarding JJ's welfare and location and to collect DNA. The FBI was contacted to assist the search. The FBI raided Lori's apartment at 175 and they found all the clothing was removed and just some furniture was remaining. Melanie Pulowski's apartment, is probably a new apartment, at 174 was searched, and they raided Alex Cox's apartment there in the same complex, 107, and they noted that there was nothing inside that apartment, and they failed to find the children. Also, while they were doing this search warrant, they saw documentation regarding a storage unit, so they got a search warrant for that. So on November 27th, they applied and received a search warrant for Lori's storage unit and found the kids' stuff inside. But they didn't find any kids. That's that storage unit that they were shown rolling a tire in and putting the back seat in and then rolling it out. Yeah, that one. So at this point in the narrative, Chad and Lori are on the lam, and the other members of this group, in my opinion, are pairing up and getting married. Okay? Allegedly, the end times were to occur July 2020. It's not July yet. It's not 2020 yet. And these couplings were necessary in the Church of the Firstborn. So, November 29th, 2019, Alex Cox marries Zulema Pastenes in Las Vegas, Nevada, in a 3.5-minute ceremony. And there are no guests there, and the security guard was the witness to this event. Alex also changes his surname to Pastenes, and the minister noticed that this was a first for him. Out of all the 100,000 weddings he's officiated, this is the first time a man has taken his wife's surname. I ask you, was Alex trying to go incognito under Pastenes? I think so, in my opinion. Then on November 30th, Melanie Boudreau, you know, the one whose husband Alex allegedly tried to kill, she marries a man named Ian Pulowski in Las Vegas. So Uncle Alex Cox is the witness for this coupling. In my opinion, this is another coupling for the Church of the Firstborn. Now, I don't think that that's her stance on it, and, you know, this is just my opinion. December 1st, 2019, Chad and Lori fly from Los Angeles. So they've made it to Los Angeles and they go to Kauai. They have no children with them, obviously, and they are on the lam in Kauai. And then they bounce around the Hawaiian Islands from rental to rental. Eventually, you'll find that Nate Eaton catches up with them and dogs them around, asking them questions. And you can see their demeanor to those questions. On December 2nd to the 3rd of 2019, Ian Pulowski, he's freshly married to Melanie, not Gibb, Melanie Boudreau. His ex calls Ian's mother, worried that Ian might now be in a cult. His ex was worried about how to keep her children safe, her own children with Ian safe, and then Ian goes to the police. Ian allegedly said that it was possible that Chad, Lori, and Alex planned the Brandon Boudreau shooting, that Tylee and JJ might be in serious danger, and that Alex and Zulema were preparing earthquakes. Okay, so that was his understanding, his things he had heard. Law enforcement interviewed Melanie Pulowski now for 5 hours on December, I think 3rd, 2nd or 3rd. And she then tells Ian later that 2 of the agents were possessed by spirits. This is allegedly, you know, so there's something going on, okay, in my opinion. On December 4th, 2019, Ian is still attempting to cooperate with law enforcement. And he tells his ex-wife, because he's got a family with her, regarding Brandon's the attempted murder on Brandon, that Melanie, his wife, his new wife, didn't know anything about that beforehand. So didn't know beforehand what was going to happen. They made the attempt, they failed, and told her about it after the fact. So allegedly, Melanie Boudreau Pulowski did not know that Alex and the because then you think Lori and Chad were there rolling the tires in and out, that she didn't know anything about any of that. On December 6, 2019, the Rexburg Police Department is finally contacted by Melanie Gibb, and she finally admits that both Chad and Lori had asked her to lie and to tell police that she had JJ, but that she never had JJ, and she admits that. Like, I never had him, I lied to you, I'm sorry. Again, this doesn't make a huge difference in the timeline of events. Maybe they would have had some national exposure a little earlier, but it is what it is. So, on the 8th of December, Melanie calls, and she is essentially, in my opinion, trying to cover her ass and to do this for the police to show that she wasn't a party to these things, these murders. So she calls and tapes Chad and Lori, and it's a great call. I have it fully covered on another video, but it's the CYA call. So basically, she's letting police know that she is being set up. Like, she feels like she's being set up. And she's asking them on this audio recording, like, you know, where are you guys? Because they're on the lam and they're not telling police where they are. And she's trying to ferret out from them where they are. And she's asking if JJ's safe. And, you know, Lori says, oh yeah, he's safe and happy. And, you know, and Melanie says that both Alex and Zulema had told her, you don't want to know what happened to JJ. So that implies that both Alex and Zulema, according to Melanie Gibb, know what happened to JJ. and that he will never be found, okay? So Melanie's through this tape letting police know, and the world essentially now, that she didn't know where JJ was. She didn't know where Chad and Lori were. And I want to note, she never mentions Tylee in this recording, because I think she still thinks Tylee's alive at this point. Or someone could say, well, she knows Tylee's dead. I don't know. But she is seemingly sounding very worried, concerned, and upset. But I could also argue that she's starting to see that maybe she's being set up, because she has been at all these locations at times that are hinky. So maybe she feels that maybe David Warwick got in her ear and said, hey, do you think they're trying to set you up for something? And so she's going to cover her butt and call them on the phone. Essentially, Lori is saying that she's not telling anybody where JJ is to give them plausible deniability. All right, so that's what you get out of that phone call. On December 10th, 2019, a Kauai resident spots Lori and Chad Daybell around the pool, seemingly without a care in the world. And in my opinion, I'm sure Tammy Daybell's life insurance money was helping to fund this lovely Hawaiian lifestyle. So it's funny how it's supposed to be like the end of the world, you know, like you're supposed to be prepping and like getting people into the church of the firstborn and stuff, but instead they're just like at the beach and at the pool and, you know, fixing your hair and walking around and shopping, and so much for the end times, right? You really start to see really what it was all about. It was just about them being together, having sex, and having the money for their lifestyle. That's really what it was all about, because if they really were that truly fanatic, they would be continuing in their fanaticism. They would be trying to recruit people. They wouldn't be just chilling on the beach in Hawaii, just my opinion. So on December 11th, 2019, Tammy Daybell's body is exhumed for autopsy in the early morning, and the autopsy is done that same day. She's reinterred, and the autopsy results are sealed. And they've just now been unsealed, so now we know what the verdict is of that. Homicide, okay? But the world in our timeline doesn't know that yet, so let's just keep going. At some point, Melanie Gibb says that she told Alex Cox that she was talking to police, that she was gonna talk to police. So Alex had to have known that things were not looking good, because think, Lori and Chad have landed, okay? He's gotten married to Zulema, and he's taken her last name, and he's at her place. And now Melanie's talking to him saying that she's talking to police. What happens? Death number 6, guys. I know, if you don't know this case, you're probably going, what the heck? Death number 6, December 12th, 2019, Alex Cox, age 51. He's been married for 2 weeks to Zulema. Allegedly, Alex begins feeling poorly, and Chad gives him a priesthood blessing on the phone. And through phone tag, then Zulema is advised to go home and that Alex is unwell. Like, Alex is unwell, you know, you need to go home and check up on him. Alex Cox is found unconscious in the upstairs bedroom at Zulema's Gilbert, Arizona home by her own son. Her own son finds Alex and calls 911 for the boyfriend, okay? The son doesn't even know that this is his mother's new husband. The son doesn't even know Alex's last name when asked by 911. I kid you not. So Alex dies allegedly from a pulmonary embolism, so natural causes. And I think they're standing by that, not sure. But allegedly, a lot of people feel it's very suspicious. Zulema at the hospital, okay, because he's taken to the hospital, and he's pronounced dead at the hospital. And allegedly, they wanted to go back and look at the house to see what he, to check it, to investigate his death. And allegedly, Zulema says, why are you searching the house when he was not pronounced dead until he was at the hospital? And am I a suspect? So that was like initially allegedly a knee-jerk reaction for her, is to be questioning their reasoning of looking at her house, and it's just kind of like, wow, okay. Zulema, in the tried true fashion of the behavior of this group, she didn't tell the main Cox family about Alex's death for 7 days. Yeah, I guess turnabout's fair play, right? So Alex, his own mother, you know, what's her name, Janice, and Summer and co. didn't know about Alex's death for 7 days. In my opinion, this is just my opinion, my speculation, Alex was poisoned or he took one for the team. He knew it was coming down and he took one for the team. On December 20th, 2019, the Rexburg Police Department, they post regarding the missing endangered children, JJ, Joshua Vallow, and Tylee Ashland Ryan, and the case makes national news. And this is where, in this timeline, we find out about it. That the normal person goes, hey, there's 2 missing kids, and the husband and the newly married couple are in Hawaii, and you know, you start getting interested in this and you start looking around and wondering where these kids could be. So on December 21st, 2019, the pictures of Lori Vallow Daybell and Chad Daybell are shown, and they are called persons of interest regarding the missing children. And everybody is tracking them down. They're looking, you know, looking to see where they could be, what they're doing, where the kids could possibly be. Could, you know, the last known pictures of Tylee, you know, in Yellowstone, could she be at Yellowstone? You know, all the speculation and all the national attention now descends upon this case. And on January 3rd, 2020, FBI and the local law enforcement, they served a search warrant on Chad Daybell's property and the Rexburg house, the one with the bodies in the ground and the one that Tammy died at. And it's winter though, okay? And so the ground is really snowy, and they collect 43 items of evidence from inside the house and around the property, like electronics and the like. And the state also end up testing debris that they take from tools in a barn on Chad's property. That, some of the testing from the tools, it could be used up in the DNA process, the processing of the DNA, because it's a small sample. And so it's probably going to be used up, but I think they're still waiting to hear back about the tool testing. So there are folks that wanted the defendants to be immediately charged with murder and immediately Imagine now, we're still waiting for some tests. If they had been charged initially with these crimes of murder right out of the gate and elected their speedy trial, we would not have had the testing results back yet. That is one reason why you wait to have all the evidence before you proceed with murder charges. But I digress. On January 25th, 2020, Lori Vallow Daybell is served by the Kauai Police Department regarding the Madison County, Idaho Department of Health and Welfare protection order. See, what happened is the kids are missing, so they had a protection order, you know, saying that she had to produce the children within 5 days, and it had to be served on her. So it was. So on January 26th, 2020, the feds serve a search warrant on the Daybells' rental cars and their condo in Kauai, and they find the children's birth certificates. I think they find JJ's iPad, they find Tylee's financial card, all kinds of things like that regarding like the kids, but no kids. And Lori, of course, then fails to appear in Idaho and produce the children in that 5-day time span that she was required to do so. So on February 20th, 2020, Lori Vallow Daybell is arrested on the Madison County, Idaho warrant of the 2 felony counts of desertion and non-support of dependent children, and she was extradited back to the mainland, so from Kauai to Idaho. And Lori's remaining son, Colby, meanwhile, he's pleading with her to do the right thing and to tell everybody where the kids are and, you know, end this craziness. And she refuses to give Colby, her own remaining child, any answers regarding Tylee and JJ. And Colby, says, she's just not there. She's out of her mind. So Lori is arrested and she's placed in jail. And Chad is still free-range chicken. So he goes and lives back at his house at the Salem address, where the kids were. And on June 9th, 2020, in the morning, the Daybell property of 3 to 4 acres is searched, and the remains of Tylee and JJ are discovered buried there. And the FBI prepped 1 whole week to search the Daybell property before they even set foot on it. They used satellite imaging, they used text messages, they used telephone pings, which led them to the priority areas that they wanted to search. And the FBI performed a grid search at all the previously determined cell hits. And I did a whole video on their cast system that they use to try to put all the data together and figure out like who was where, and like using pings and text messages and all that stuff. So they located the fire pit as an area of potential interest. Another area was a clandestine grave in front of a dog statue in an area that's known as the Pet Cemetery. And finally, the east side of a pond near a tree where another clandestine grave was found. Those were the three primary areas of interest. I'm going to talk really quickly about this. This is gruesome. The burial site 1 is an area of the pond, and they removed an area of vegetation. And then they found some stones underneath that vegetation, like 3 stones. And then they removed that, and they found thin boards that were laid underneath the stones. And then there were all these roots surrounding the tree, and like someone had gone and like cut all these roots away too. So think there's some preparation involved here. And under that, they found a black plastic bag, and it was tightly wrapped, and like the agent could see like the top of like the shape of a skull. And he slid it open, and upon opening it, he saw like another white plastic bag with duct tape. And when he slit that open, he saw the human hair. And so they found JJ essentially wrapped in black plastic, and his arms were duct taped together. He had duct tape on his head. And seemingly what that leads me to believe is that he was conscious when he was first attacked. Otherwise, you wouldn't have had a reason to duct tape him the manner he was duct taped, which is really horrible. Burial site number 2, even more macabre. At the second burial site, the clandestine grave was in front of the dog statue, or in that general vicinity. They found 2 vertebrae, and then they brought in some earth moving equipment to get that whole area excavated, and they located melted, dismembered, burned, and unburned remains, all like in a mass. The dismembered remains of Tylee were found. There was a melted green bucket and a partial skull. While this is going on, just as luck would have it, Lori is calling Chad from jail, and Chad's watching this search being conducted. And of course, as jail recordings are, it was recorded, and Chad is telling Lori that the police are searching the property, and she's querying him about, well, outside or inside, and he's basically telling her to contact Mark Means, essentially call the attorney. Yeah, he knew that the jig was up, and once he sat in the car in the driveway, according to the FBI agent, and he watched the search. And once the children's remains were found, he drove away and then was arrested. Right? He was arrested. Yeah, that's the story here. Due to COVID, the grand jury, which had been, they were held on charges for having the bodies in the yard and all kinds of other associated charges. But we all know that the murder charges were eventually going to come down, and they have, because due to COVID, the grand jury, which had been held off being impaneled because of COVID, they were finally impaneled 11 months after the bodies were found on Chad Daybell's property. And Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell and Alex Cox, who is now deceased, they're charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy regarding the murder of the children. And Chad has caught charges for the murder of Tammy Daybell, along with associated other charges like the insurance fraud and the Social Security fraud, all of it. And we were waiting to find out like what would happen, because there had been previous charges. Usually those, if charges spawn out of a common event, usually they'd be put together. But usually the more important charges was like first degree murder versus like, say, just having the bodies on your property. They would usually all be put together. And so we were waiting to hear how the court was going to rule on, whether the defendants were going to be together. They're going to have move the trial, which I think they probably should, move it to another jurisdiction. And we're all waiting. And then March 8th, 2021, Lori Vallow is allegedly given a psych assessment and declared to be incompetent to stand trial. And this record was sealed at the time. And many believe that she's malingering, like she's just simply pretending that she is not mentally ill. But regardless, folks, if she is deemed incompetent to stand trial, all right, she'll just simply be put in a state-run mental hospital or the like, and they will medicate her or make her well till she can stand trial. That could be 3 weeks, that could be a month, that could be 3 months, that could be 10 years, all right? But she doesn't just get to go home. That's how that plays out. Now, we still have Chad facing all these charges, and usually if it's tenuous and it might take her 10 years to be found competent, they will go ahead and proceed against Chad. So that's my opinion on that. I just want to note for the record, in a conspiracy, it doesn't matter which person killed which child, or, you know, that one person did this and one person did that. As long as they're in a conspiracy with a common goal and overt acts involved, Chad can be found guilty of all the crimes if they have the overt acts and they can prove the conspiracy. So regardless of whether Lori is sitting in a mental health facility or being medicated to be better wherever she is, waiting to be found competent to stand trial, they can still proceed against Chad, just so you know. But yeah, on May 21st of this year, she was also declared indigent, so seemingly she's run through all the money that she had, and Mark Means has decided to remain on as her attorney, but now he's court appointed. So normally, if you're indigent, you'd get a court-appointed attorney, but your regular attorney can opt, your personal attorney, your private attorney can opt to go be paid the the court-appointed amount, which is just an hourly rate. It's usually not that high at all to be a public defender. What's my opinion? You have three issues of competency in general, just in any old general trial, okay? You have the competency when you commit the crime, okay? Was somebody incompetent when they commit the crime? Well, in that case, this state doesn't recognize the insanity defense. It uses it as a mitigator, I do believe. So that's not an issue here. Like while these killings went on, she was insane. You have insanity to, the competency to stand trial, okay? Because we don't want someone who is looking at the walls and talking to spirits and being on another planet, not able to assist their own defense. So they have to be competent to stand trial. They have to appreciate the charges against them and be able to assist their counsel. That's the part she's at right now. And I guess somebody has said she's not competent. All right? That's where we are now. The other time competency is brought up is if they get the death penalty, they have to be competent to be executed. Okay, because you're not supposed to execute someone who's incompetent. So those are usually the 3 times you find them in the legal sense, at a trial, is during, standing, and execution. And we're not here yet. We don't even know if the death penalty will be on the table. If not, then that's not an issue. But right now she's right here. Do I think she's competent to stand trial? I think she might be. I think that if she has this whole time been helping Mark Means, then she's been competent seemingly up to this point. I don't know what happened in March. I don't know if something snapped in her. We're not in her mind. I'm not a psychologist. I cannot tell you whether she's competent or not, okay? And there's no flashing sign that all of a sudden lights up and says, incompetent, incompetent. You know what I mean? She can present herself washed and with her hair done and with some makeup on, and not screaming, howling mad. And that's not the indicator of whether she's competent or not. What the indicator is whether she can appreciate the charges against her, whether she can help her counsel, that kind of stuff. So that's for a doctor to decide. If she can fake her way out of it again, then what happens? She doesn't win. Usually, I don't know how they do it during COVID, but she'll go to a mental hospital and she'll be forcibly medicated until she is right in the head again, and that'll churn you around really quick. I don't think those meds, if you're not incompetent, will make you feel very good. All right, guys? So I don't think she's going to want to fake it to the point that they're pricking her all the time. Just my opinion. And if she really truly is incompetent, don't you want her to appreciate what's going on, I mean, that's only fair. So it's still going to happen with Chad. It's still going to proceed with Chad, and just don't stress about it. I mean, so those folks that thought that the minute the kids were missing, that the defendant should have been strung up, you know, and then the minute the bodies were found, that the minute that happened, that we should have executed them right away, and like, you know, threw the charges at them. Do you start to see now that the speedy trial, it's an important thing for a defendant, and that had they not taken their time to present the case, to gather all the evidence, that they probably could have let these defendants walk free? There's a reason that justice turned slow. That's rant off. So anyway, if you like this video, if you found this informative, please push the like button. Please hit the subscribe bell. I appreciate it so much. I see I have some new followers. Thank you so much for following me. I hope to do all my cases justice, and without further ado, have an excellent day. Bye.